Okay. Welcome, everyone.
Oh, there you
Good
are.
afternoon. You see me? I'm back.
Yeah, it's great.
Okay. I'm Rabbi Bensi here from Chabad and Only. The schedule is that every day of the week. Another one of the team here is going to be leading the class, and I'm excited for this chut, and to be here, the merit to be here, and congratulate you on getting started in this wonderful undertaking. About 12 days ago, the cycle started with the introductory chapters, introductory pages of Maimonides, of this big 14-book volume, Mishnah Torah. And it is today that we actually get into the first of the chapters itself that begin the explanations of the mitzvahs in his opening section. Today, we begin Sefer Hamada, the book of knowledge. The book of knowledge is divided into 5 categories, and I'm going to begin here as follows. The Rambam opens his book with a verse of the Tanakh. He does this for each of the 14 books that are going to be thematically connected with the topic of that book. He opens with a verse of Psalms, Tehillim Lamed Vav, Mishoch chastecha liyodecha v'tzidkascha liyishrei lev. Draw your kindness liyodecha to those that know you. That's the name of the book. It's about knowledge, getting to know an intimate connection with Hashem, as we will see, and v'tzidkascha, and your justice liyishrei lev, to those which are straight-hearted. Sefer Rishon. This is the first of the books. We'll Sefer Hamada, the book of Mada, of knowledge. Hilchotav Chamesh. There are 5 sections of laws. V'zo siduran. This is the order. First is Hilchas Yesodi HaTorah, the laws of the foundations of the Torah, the most important principles before we engage with mitzvahs. The second, Hilchas Deos, proper behaviors of a Torah following Jew. Third, Hilchas Talmud Torah, the laws of the study of Torah. The fourth, Hilchas Avodah Zarah v'Chukos HaGoyim, the laws of idolatry and norms of the conventional norms which we should of the time of idolaters and so on, that we should avoid, and Hilchas Tshuva, the laws of return, of improving one's behavior and getting back onto the right path if we've veered from it. So these are the 5 sections. This is going to take up a total of 45 chapters to get through the first book. So if a 3-year study cycle seems daunting, get started and focus on the first 45 days. You'll cover the first of the 45 of the 14 books. Hilchas Yesodi HaTorah, the laws of Yesodi HaTorah. Those that are with us, you're welcome to unmute yourself and ask a question. We will try to keep the questions on task, on target, so we can finish in time. Our goal is 20 to 25 minutes. Okay. Hilchas Yesodi HaTorah, the laws of the foundations of the Torah. Just real quickly here, if you're with me. Sorry for this background noise here. If you're with me and you're looking for the text, I'm putting it once again into the chat. I think that it might be easier this way. In the future, we'll talk about other options. There might be an easy option for a book. We'll follow up with all the possibilities to follow the text inside. The first of the halachas is as follows. Yesodi HaTorah, as Rambam would always do, he's going to begin every series of halachas with specifying which mitzvahs are going to be addressed in these series of laws. And in this case, it's going to be, Yesodi Torah is at 10 chapters, and in it, actually, he's going to be going through 10 mitzvahs in the Torah. The number of chapters don't always correspond, but nevertheless, these are the mitzvahs of the 613 that we're going to be covering in this one. Yesh bichlon eser mitzvahs. There are 10 mitzvahs. Shesh mitzvahs asev arba mitzvahs losas, 10 positive, 6 positive, 4 prohibitions. V'zohu proton. This is the list. Number 1, leda sheishim alakah, knowing that there is a God. Number 2, shlo yela b'machshava sheishim alakah zalasi Hashem, not to entertain the thought that there may be another force, an entity, a divine entity. 3, liyachado, to come to appreciate the unity of God. Number 4, la'ahavo, to love God. Number 5, liyira mimenu, to develop an awe from Hashem. Number 6, lakadesh shemo, to sanctify God's name. Number 7, shlo l'chalal shmo, not to desecrate it. Number 8, not to desecrate things that are synonymous with the holiness of Hashem. Everything will be explained in the following chapter. So this is really brief. Number 9, to heed, to listen to the words of the prophet who speaks in God's name. And 10, not to test the Navi excessively. The explanation will follow. Perek Rishon, the first chapter in the opening section. Aleph, first halacha, Yesod HaYesodot, the foundation of all foundations, V'amud HaChachmot, and the pillar of all wisdom, Leida Sheyesh HaMatzur Rishon, to know that there is a supreme, a primary being. V'hu mamtzi kol nimtza, this primary being, God, is the force that is the cause of all other existences to exist. It is only as a result of God's existence. Anything that exists in the entirety of the universe, from heavens and earth and anything in between, only have come to existence only as a result of the exclusive result of God's existence, bringing it into existence. Two things I want to highlight here. The emphasis here is leda, to know, not just to believe. It's very important. Rambam believes. Rambam holds that the believing in God is insufficient. It's vague and it doesn't do justice to what the mitzvah is here to do. One early commentary there, Barbanel points out that to tell somebody that there's a mitzvah to believe in God actually makes no sense. Because if I'm accepting who's commanding me? Who told me to believe that there's a God? I obviously had to believe in God before I even opened up to hear what God told me to do. So the mitzvah here is more than just believing in God. It's spending time to internalize, to study to the best of my ability, the parameters and the ramifications of this existence of God. The other point I wanted to make, okay, let's go on with that. Okay, next, halacha bet, the second one. V'im ya'alal hadas, shehu eino matzui en davar acher yachol lehimatzot. Nothing else could exist. If God doesn't exist, nothing can exist. The third is going to be a continuation of this, and then I'll elaborate just a little further. Number Gimel. V'im ya'alal hadas she'ein kol hanimtzoin milvado mitzuyin. If one would entertain the thought that other existences, perhaps maybe they don't exist. You can philosophize. Does this really exist, or does it not exist? That's okay. I could philosophize that question, but one thing that is unchangeable is God's existence is absolute. Even if there's an apocalypse that I believe, that the world is going to cease to exist, God cannot cease to exist. All of existence need God to continue to exist. God's existence is not dependent on them. To use a term from Moreh Nevuchim, another work of the Rambam, we would put it this way, just to summarize the way the Rambam is articulating this existence of God being so absolute. He refers to it as everything that exists that we know is efshari hametziut. It happens to exist. It could have not existed. It happens to be that it exists. God's existence is mechuyav hametziut. It's not that it happens to be that it exists. It must exist. Everything else, debatable. Might it be around tomorrow? Might not. Has it always been around? Does it even exist now? Or is it just in my imagination? But God's existence is absolute. Gimel. We're continuing with Gimel. My numbers might be a little bit different than yours, but the text should be the same. We're moving along. When I speak of God's existence and God exists, it's a very different existence, a very different statement than saying, my home exists, I exist. It means something very different, as the Rambam just pointed out. There's nothing that exists as real as God's existence. That's what it means to understand and appreciate God's reality in my life. Continue. Hu Shehanavi Omer. I'm just going to quickly look here to see, because I feel, yeah, we're at Dalet. Very good. We're opening the fourth halacha here of this chapter. V'im yalal hadas. I'm sorry, the fichach Sorry, where are we here? Hushan Avi Omer. This is what the prophet says. Mahashem Elokim Emes. God, our God, is true. What does it mean it's true? It's here to tell you that not that he's also true, that God is also true. You know, my existence is true, and my bank account is true, and God is also true. No, only God is true. Hu levado emes. He is the only true being. Bein la'acher emes kamita. So nothing can be as truthful, as realistic as God. V'husha Torah omeres enod milvade. This is also what the Torah means when it says there's nothing but God. Kilomar, not to mean that nothing actually exists, but ein shumatsui emes milvado kamoso. Nothing exists as realistically as he exists. So that's turns the tables a little bit to understand and appreciate what it means existence. Let's go on. Hey, hamatsui hazehu elakaha olam. This existence, God, is the God of the universe. Adon kolad. It's the master of all, of everything. V'hu hamanig hagalgal bekoach. And God is the force behind what moves the galgal. Okay, so the galgal is a term that was used in works of science at the time, that the entirety of the universe moves around one big cycle, a kind of one big system. But the point the Rambam makes is irrelevant if we're comfortable with that language of the science of way back or of now. The point, I'm going to use my own words and we'll just read it into the Rambam. The point the Rambam wants to make is that if you observe the phenomenon around me, the world, the movement that the world has that keeps things going, and if you want to go down, down to the atom and the microns and neutrons, so there is a constant movement of everything. The force that keeps it all moving along is Hashem's existence. That's the point that he's going to make. Okay. We're in middle of 5, the 5th halacha. God is the one that moves the full galgal, the movement of everything in the universe. God has no end, has no limitation. A limitless energy power. The world is always moving in its system. Nothing happens on its own. Obviously, God is doing it. When I say moving it, not through this kind of this gigantic body that's standing and moving the pieces, but through a godlike power. And knowing this knowledge, mitzvah say is a positive commandment. This is the first of the mitzvahs. The opening of the 10 commandments. Know that I'm God, your God. If somebody entertains the thought that there might be an additional divine entity, power, that be over below sasa. If I think and contemplate this seriously, and I harbor this belief system, then I'm transgressing the losasa, the forbidden, the prohibition. Don't bring in another God into my reality. The kafar beikar. It's denying the most important principle, God. Knowing and accepting this is the foundation upon which everything is built. Next, 7. This God is one. Now we're going to spend a little time to talk about God's unity. It's not two, not more than two. It's not polytheism. When I say one, it's a very different one than what you are used to when you say one. Like one person versus two. Why? Lo echad can mean. First of all, when I say one, Rambam says, I don't mean one species, like an angel and a mountain. So when I say angel, it refers to the angelic species, if that would be an appropriate term. But there's no, God forbid, we can say species, but it's one entity. But also, it is not one entity that's comprised of various components. So the yichud, it's a unity, and essentially, really, there's nothing to compare it to. There's nothing in our life that we can really compare that kind of unity that is not comprised of multiple components. Zion, continuing in 7. Had there been many forces, many gods, that would mean that God has a corporal side to him. Because the body is what really defines the difference between the experiences of me and you. I have a body and you have a body, and we experience two different ways how we go about our life. Because God is bodiless, any kind of body, not a physical, not a spiritual one, that basically removes this thought of there being more than one. Additionally, if God had some kind of corporal side, then there would be a finiteness, there would be a limit to God's also ability. Everybody has its limitations up to what you're capable of doing, what you're not, because you're limited by your very existence. If I'm limited, what I can do is limited, and that would be problematic to think so about God. We continue with 7. Our God, just as his energy has no end, because if you observe the phenomenon of the world, you see that the power is limitless, it's going on constantly. And clearly God's energy that's propelling all this is not a physical one. It's not one that's thanks to him being part of a body. Because God isn't body, God is not limited and defined by what happens to bodies, which would be a way of trying to understand God's being through the prism of being limited like that. God must be only one. Knowing God's unity is also a mitzvah. As we finish in the Shema, to know and proclaim God's unity. One doesn't just mean one, not two, but all these elements here to understand how the unity of God, what it means that God basically is bodiless, formless, limitless. That's what we mean by not being limited to a body. From here to pretty much so close to the end of the chapter, Rambam is going to challenge this notion with the reality that throughout Tanakh we find so many references to Hashem's Hashem relating to this world through what seems to be body-like expressions that are usually associated with a body operating. And the Rambam has to clarify and explain why it is that we use that expression and why it must be that it's not to be taken literally. The English fancy word for this would be, oh gosh, it just escaped me.
Anthropomorphism.
Anthropomorphism, exactly. Where we have body-like expressions without it just you being essentially a parable. Okay, here we are. We're at Ches, the 8th halacha. Torah. It seems, though, that it is explicit in the Torah, over Navi and in the prophets. I'm sorry, first he's going to make the point that God is not a guf, God is not a body. God is above and below. He's everywhere. If God is a body, he can't be everywhere. A body is in a defined place. Another verse says, it's coming up next week's parsha. You haven't seen a tamuna, you haven't seen an image. Make it clear, you understand that I'm not an image. Isaiah says, who can you compare me to? There's nothing comparable. If God was a body, you can compare him to some degree to other bodies, even if he's a grander and greater one. So clearly God is making it clear that there is no relationship to any kind of corporal, any kind of body. Test, imkain, if so. We're going to challenge this. Why is it that we find in the Torah, in Shemos, V'sachas Raglav, under God's feet? We find another verse, Ksuvim be'etzkel hakim, the tablets were written in God's finger. Yad Hashem, God's arm. Einei Hashem, God's eyes. Azni Hashem, in Dvarim, in Bamidbar. Ein Azni Hashem, God's ears. Ukiyotzu b'dvarim halalu, and so on and so forth. Hakol, if we daiton shel b'nei Adam, who we use, the Torah uses this language, only to talk the language of people. We have no way to grasp anything only through the prism of our own bodies. We are body, comprised of bodies. The Torah speaks the language of people. They're just ways to express an idea. Another Rambam says, I'll make the point because let's go further. The verses will say, God says, I will take out, flash my sword. We're gonna take this further. We're gonna say God also has a sword, and that's how God, uses his might. It must be that all of this going back to God's eyes, ears, and it all is essentially just anthropomorphism. It is a parable. Raya l'davar zal, prove my point, says the Rambam in Tess. I'm on the 9th halacha. Shanavi echad omer, those that joined the chat should have the link. If you don't see it, I've just posted it again. We obviously are going to take feedback if you feel that we should have shared the screen. I wasn't sure the best way to go about it. We'll talk about options to get the books and so on. Okay. Test. Raya l'davers are proof. I'll make my case. Shanavi echad omer. One, the Navi says, Shara Kadosh Baruch Hu levushi ketlag chiver. One prophet says he was dressed in white. V'achir ra'ahu, another prophet, Yeshaya, Isaiah says, Chamutz begadim mibatzra, clothed in red, like kind of bloodied, when he came back from the war in Batzra in Babylonia. Moshe Rabbeinu atzmo ra'ahu alayam ki giberos milchama. Moshe describes seeing God as a mighty warrior at the sea of the Yam Suf. Sinai, when he experiences God at Sinai, it's k'shliach tzibur ataf. It's like a chazan that's wrapped in a talis. The reason why he's using all these expressions is to make it clear that God has none of these forms. It's just merely expressing what he was able to grasp through his abilities of prophecy. But the truth of the matter is, the objective truth is, that no mind can grasp God. You're going to try to understand God. You think you'll be successful? You think you're going to get to the bottom of it. Not Yud. Now I'm gonna ask you further. We seem to have a whole dialogue with Moshe and Hashem. Moshe is trying to understand God. Moshe says, God, please show me your honor. He tried to understand the true, he tried to understand God well. He wanted to understand God should be as real to him as I see you and you're real to me. I have a clear, distinct entity in a memory of you. That's how intimately he wanted to have an appreciation for Hashem. He wanted to have God's existence to be so clear and articulated in his heart and mind. To know it truly. God answered him, you can't truly get that appreciation while you're alive. Next, Yud. Then God finished with Moshe. God says, I will give you a glimpse into my existence that nobody is going to ever see till the end of time. He got some element, some glimpse of Hashem. It's as if when I see a person from back, I have some kind of resemblance and way to grasp what their general look is. But it's not an intimate vision of what God is, because that's impossible. And it's hinted and alluded to in the conversation with Moshe and Hashem. You'll see kind of from my back and not from my front. That's the expression that it's coming to give. Once it's clear to us that God has no body, it must be that nothing that is attributed to body, the weaknesses of a body, can be attributed to God. Not connection, not separation. Not being in a particular place, not size. Not going up or going down. No right, left. No front and back. No sitting, no standing. It doesn't exist within time that God should have a beginning and an end and a length of days. God isn't transformed, doesn't change with time. God doesn't exist within time, supersedes it all. Not death, not life. Not folly, foolishness, not even wisdom. What wisdom means to us cannot be attributed to God. These are things that happen to bodies. Not sleeping, not awake. Not anger, not smiling. Not happiness, not sad. Despondency, deeper, not quiet, not speaking as we speak. That's what the Talmud says. There's none of this stuff when it comes to God. We're at the last halacha here. And if this is the case, all these expressions that we find throughout the entirety of the Tanakh, they're simply parables. God sits in heaven and smiles. They made me angry with their foolishness. Kashasas Hashem, just as God would rejoice. Okay, it's been all of these expressions. Ala kol amr chachamim, regarding all of these dibra Torah klashon b'nei Adam. God is only talking the language of man. Are they really angering me? God clearly says, I don't change. If God was sometimes happy, sometimes angry, God, then that would be a change, and there's an impossibility for God. These experiences are reserved for us living in these limited bodies. On the other hand, is way above all of this. Okay, so we're getting a handle on time. We'll get to it to pace ourselves properly. Feedback is critical. So if this was too fast, too slow, you need a text with you, please share your feedback. We're going to create probably an email or a WhatsApp group or both to keep the dialogue open with those that are planning to come back to this class. They are going to be recorded as well, so if you miss a class, don't sweat. And you always have the text inside. Have a wonderful rest of your afternoon, everyone. I'll take questions if anybody wants.